Forest High School Board. It is currently 6:01 p.m. We are, sorry, give me one sec. Let me pull this up. Okay. We are still operating virtually at this point, pursuant to Governor Pritzker's disaster declaration from June of 2020. So due to the current health concerns, I, Sarah Spivey, as head of the public body, don't believe it's practical or prudent to hold an in-person meeting of our board this evening. I further believe that it's not practical or prudent to have the public present at our meeting this evening. We've been holding remote meetings with updated practices to comply with Public Act 101-640, signed by Governor Pritzker in August of 2020. Gail, could you please call the roll? I would note that we are also streaming live for folks who are not with us in person. Gail, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kofsky?
Here.
Dr. Mohanraj?
Here.
Mr. Henry?
Here.
Mr. Martiri?
Here.
And Ms. Dixon-Spivey.
I am here as well. All right. So if anybody is watching us who's not on the board or part of the administration, we're going into closed session. We will be back at 7:30, which is our normal meeting time. We have an extended closed session this evening due to some unworking board governance work, which is very standard. We do it every year. So at this point, I'm going to move to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, independent contractors and specific volunteers, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. Collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, and for self-evaluation practices and procedures or professional ethics when meeting with a representative of the statewide association of which the district is a member. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Gail, could you call the roll, please?
Dr. Mohanraj?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Martiri?
Yep.
Mr. Kofsky?
Yes.
And Ms. Dixon-Spivey.
Yes, I'm sorry, I think I was muted. So your closed session link is in your email. For anybody else, we will be back at 7:30 on this link. Hi, Fiona. Can you hear me? Hi, good to see you. Can you do me a favor and pronounce your last name before we start? I've only ever seen it written and I don't want to get it wrong. I'm sorry, and you're also muted.
Bizaire is my last name.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I was anxious about mispronouncing it, so I appreciate that.
It is very French. It's okay.
Well, my name has been mispronounced my entire life, so I feel like I'm especially attuned to that issue. Hey everyone, how are you? So we're just gonna have, we're gonna wait a second just to get the rest of the board in the meeting. Let me see if we're all here. And then we can get going. Okay. Yep, we're almost there. Okay, so we have Ralph, Kabrib, Tom. Do I see Tom? Let's see. Tom is not in yet, and Marianne is here. So we're just waiting for Tom. Let's give him one more second. Yep. Okay, great. All right. Welcome everyone to the meeting. Okay, let me get my agenda back. All right. So we have our introductory reports this evening. And our first item is our student showcase. Dr. Johnson?
All right, to get things started, I think I'm going to turn this over to Linda Parker because our athletic director is away at a competition at the moment. So Ms. Parker, do you want to introduce our students?
Yes, in fact, good evening. I'm going to let Susan Johnson go first to see if I can give Nicole just a little bit more time. And if not, I will do our team after Susan Johnson does our activity of the evening.
All right, good evening. Tonight we have with us the Wheel Throwing Club. Wheel throwing is a pretty huge organization at our school, and one of the things that I'm pretty proud of with them is throughout the pandemic and this year they've grown like exponentially. So I'm really proud of them with that, and then they have a really good cause that they work for. So I'm going to let Bridget and the students talk and introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear us well?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Awesome. My name is Bridget Doherty. I'm the teacher sponsor for Wheel Throwing Club and for Empty Bowls. And so we are asked to come this month in particular because our Empty Bowls event is next Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. In the Student Activity Center. So I brought two of my club presidents, and we actually have some students throwing behind us some bowls. We're still at school in the wheel throwing room. You might see some hands waving. They're going to talk to you guys about Wheel Throwing Club and Empty Bowls. So Eva, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Hello, I'm Eva, one of the club presidents. And so we are organizing Empty Bowls, and all year in club, we throw bowls for Empty Bowls, which is our charity dinner that this is their 19th year. And we just make bowls all year until Friday. Where we sell them for charity for Beyond Hunger, Global Alliance for Africa, and Housing Forward, where we donate all the money that we get from the bowls. And
No, that's about it. Max, what are we doing in Wheel Throwing Club?
Hi, I'm Max, and in Wheel Throwing Club, people who or students who have wheel throwing experience, like Eva and myself, we teach people who come to club to make bowls, and they provide most of the bowl or a lot of the bowls that we have at Empty Bowls. And in club, it's right now it's every Tuesday at 3:15, and after Empty Bowls, we just do activities and stuff like that. But as Eva said, up until now we make bowls.
Yeah, so all these students in our classroom have made close to about 1,000 bowls, which will all be laid out. Yeah, it's crazy. All be laid out in the main entrance of the high school. And then all the money we raise, as Eva said, goes to 3 organizations that help fight hunger. And that's a little bit about what we do. Thank you.
That is awesome. Thank you guys for all of your hard work. That is so cool.
And just one thing to clarify, this year, empty bowls, for safety, we don't want to have our traditional soup line. What they usually do is they come in, people pick their bowls, and then they get into this really long soup line, and they go and get soup served to them that has been donated by local restaurants. But this year we wanted to keep everybody kind of safe. So instead of that, instead of the soup, they're going to give a recipe book that has coupons for some of the local restaurants, and then recipes submitted by OPRF staff and community members. So everybody can make their soup at home.
Yeah, would you mind, either Bridget or Susan, like talking about how the public could maybe get involved if anybody's watching and was interested in buying a bowl or learning more about it? But we might as well plug it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Bridget do that.
Yeah, so we will be putting out the bowls at about 3 o'clock on Friday, but people can come at the main entrance of the high school at 6 p.m. And if you would like to buy a bowl, you can wait in the line. It's crazy at 6 o'clock though, so you have to wait in a long line. There's a lot of people. And so if you're interested in getting a bowl and a recipe book and coupon book, you can come anytime on Friday between 6 and 8 p.m. If you still want to contribute, but you don't want a bowl or you can't make it in person, we do have a website. It's oprfemptybowls.weebly.com, and there's a donate link too. So if you want to donate and support our cause, you can donate there too. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much. So fun.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Bridget, and your students. Whenever we think about students and we talk about their resilience, think about the fact that they made 1,000 bowls to have available at this event. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. And then I am going to take it away now to introduce our athletic team, teams who are here today. These are our state qualifiers for girls swim and for dive. And tonight we have with us Coach Lundgren and the ladies who are here. And he is also speaking for Mark Papalardo, who does our diving team as well. So Clyde, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Parker. Thank you, board members, for having us here. What a great moment to be able to recognize the efforts of the gals we have on screen there. It looks like it's Tegan's computer. She's the one in sort of the orange sweatshirt. Tegan, if you can wave. And then to her right is Sadie Murphy, freshman. And then to Tegan's left is Jessica Lee, also freshman. And there's a couple gals that are, is like the screen reversed or something like that. I'm sorry. But a couple gals are not mentioned, are not there. Victoria Couris, she's a junior. And then Cecily Burns, she's a diver. But these young ladies did an amazing job throughout the season, couple of school records between them, and just great camaraderie, leadership, and qualities that you would be proud to associate yourself with as far as being a Husky. And qualifying for state, these 5 young ladies did an amazing job. We had 2 all-staters placing in the top 12 at the state meet, Tegan and Sadie. So it was a fantastic season. We felt very fortunate to be able to get the season in, given the restrictions with COVID and all that. So we start with gratitude and just kind of build from there. So super grateful to get the season in. And, it's the coincidence of the pool issues coming out today. And then we have state for boys tomorrow. So it's kind of a sort of a poignant evening. But again, thank you for allowing us to come and sort of get some shout outs for the people that deserve it. So thanks for your time.
Absolutely, Coach. And ladies, if you all want to just add anything about your season, I want to give you an opportunity to chime in.
Sure. So I'm Tegan. This is very new. I've never done anything like this before, but thank you for having us. I just think I really couldn't be prouder to be a part of this program. Like, it means so much to me, and I think it means like being able to lead these girls and like do so. I mean, the seniors my freshman year like made the biggest impact on me like my entire life. This whole entire program, like Clyde, the coaches, Hannah, Christina, I love all of them, and I'll never forget anything. So I'm just hoping that like I made the impact on them that they made on me. You want to add anything, children? These are my little babies. They're a little bit shy, but you'll be seeing them again.
Well, we are so glad you all joined us, and Coach, thank you for being here and for your service to the team. You all have the most well-used picture in all of the school of where Coach is in the pool and everybody is around him. That picture shows up everywhere on PowerPoints. So thank you for that, and just thank you for being here tonight. And we're really proud of you. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, ladies. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you very much, Ms. Spivey. Appreciate it. All right.
Okay, that was the highlight of the evening. I want to just put that there. All right, that was great. Okay, FOIA status, Gail. You're on mute.
Sorry, we had 6 FOIAs and they're all resolved.
Thank you very much.
You.
Okay, student council liaison reports. Do we have our student council rep?
Okay, so I'll just give you guys a little update on the club. At the last few meetings, student council has done some projects to give back. So we made plans to donate to a local charity. We also decorated like index cards for the organization, letters, and
So Hallie, we're having a really hard time hearing you.
Like uplifting positive words and images to support those all over the feeling depression. And then I just want some issues brought up some students. So students still can be frustrated with the parties going on. We have Can you hear me now?
Much better. Yes, thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we lost you again.
Am I good?
Yes, that is good. I don't know if you're calling in, but that's much better.
Can you guys hear me now?
Hallie, you may want to turn your camera off. That might help the audio.
So no. Oh, geez. Okay, what about now? That help at all?
Not great. You know what we could do is give you the call-in number. If you wanted to just call in, that might be easier.
It sounds like she may have had another video running in the background, like somebody else was watching the video simultaneously and it was causing feedback. So Haley, if you can turn off that other video that's playing, that might help.
Sarah, do we want to perhaps flip? I could do the superintendent's announcements really quickly, and then if Hallie's able to,
if you don't mind, yeah.
call in. All right, great, thanks. All right, so a few announcements to roll through here. One is tied to, at least in part, something that we'll be talking about in a little bit. So to get this started, first, I know a lot of you at this point at home have had a chance through access to one activity or another to be in the building since we've made our renovations. But next time you are in, please make sure as you walk through our welcome center that you look to the right and check out the revamped Tradition of Excellence wall in the student columns. The Husky Booster Club generously donated $40,000 for this renovation. And on behalf of the district, I want to express our gratitude. The wall is a place of honor for photos of our alumni, recently redone with new etchings that alumni who have exemplified those things that are best. And the beautiful framing and arrangement is the perfect showcase for their accomplishments. I want to thank you again to the boosters for your enduring support for our school. And I also want to add that this year, Fiona, who is in this call right now, and we'll talk about it in just a little bit, has spearheaded the donation with the club of about $35,000 over the school year to help our teaching and learning and other activities and programs in the school. It really has gone a long way to rejuvenate that program, and the benefits of the school are overwhelming. The gratitude that our teachers feel for that work is overwhelming. So thank you so much for that. I also want to say congratulations to our students of the quarter: Olivia Montez Cooper, Jude Kennedy, Maria Paulo Triana Diaz, Bianca Donlin, John Silvestri, Megumi Goto, Matthew Poe, David Andolina, Octavia Eichard, and Ewan Kim. Congratulations to all of our students. The chess team also qualified for the state tournament, an incredibly impressive accomplishment. So congratulations goes to Nathan Heistad, Matthew Green, Patrick Missy, Josh Lopez, Nicholas Rederer, Luca Lusuzo, Matteo Neri, Samuel Layton, Will Mullen, and Charles Deere. Additionally, seniors Maddie Girona and Sarah Altier won gold medals at the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America skill demonstration events. Maddie won for her preschool lesson plan, and Sarah won for fashion design. Sarah also received the most outstanding award in her event, so congratulations. Lauren Rainey won the Shakespeare monologue competition and will move on to the regional competition with hopes of qualifying for the finals in New York City. Congratulations, Lauren. The Science Olympiad team brought home 19 medals in 13 different events, including first place medals in detector building, dynamic planet, green generation, and trajectory. Congrats to the speech team for advancing 12 events to the IHSA sectionals this past weekend. With our winter sports season wrapping up, we have quite a bit of athletics news to share. We heard a little bit earlier tonight, but here's some more. Senior wrestler Jalen Dunson will compete at the state tournament this weekend for the second time in his wrestling career. The girls wrestling team placed second at their sectionals, and six Huskies qualified for state. Kitty Peralta, Trinity White, Bella Tima, Sarah Epstein, Bentley Hills, and Tiffany White. Congratulations, ladies. Senior swimmer Ben Lewis broke the West Suburban Conference record in the 100 fly. His time of 49.33 seconds was good enough to make him the fastest 100 flyer in OPRF history. Congratulations. Huskies Emmett Harmon, Aiden Pedraza, Ben Lewis, and Thomas Rotatori won the 200 medley relay, with Ben Lewis, Lars Rauch, Joshua Wood, and Thomas Rotatori also won the 400 free relay. Congratulations, Huskies. And additionally, 5 Huskies made history by representing OPRF for the first time ever in the IHSA Girls Bowling Regionals. Gracie Maidlaw and Audrey Maidlaw advanced to the IHSA Sectionals. And 2 more quick announcements. First, history teacher Mike Steffen recently celebrated the 800th broadcast of his Saturday morning radio show on WGN called Outside the Loop, an impressive accomplishment. Congratulations, Mike. And finally, in alumni news, just a few days back, 2014 graduate Emery Lehman won a bronze medal in the men's speed skating team pursuit at the 2022 Beijing Olympics. Incredibly proud to call Emery Lehman an alumni of OPRF. Congratulations to Emery and the entire team. So that concludes the superintendent announcements for today.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you, Greg. I think we have Hallie back. I see a phone number. I'm assuming that's her. Is that right?
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Perfectly. Yes. Would you like to please give us your report?
Yeah, okay. Okay, so a little update on the club. At the last few meetings, Student Council has done some projects to kind of give back. We've made blankets to donate to a local charity. We also decorated index cards for the organization Letters Against Depression. So we decorated them with uplifting positive words and images to support those all over the world struggling with depression. So I'll just move on to some issues brought up by students. Some students are still frustrated with the tardy sweeps going on. Many voice that they feel that it only makes them later to class. Students also mentioned concerns about bathroom access. Many voiced that a lot of the bathrooms tend to be locked during the day, specifically on the 3rd floor. They mentioned their frustrations with this, making using the restroom during both passing periods and class more difficult. And then students also mentioned that they are enjoying a lot of the new spaces. They appreciate that the tutoring center and the library are separate in the amount of time, like the capacity limits of students that can attend. And then looking ahead, our club is excited to be planning a school-wide event coming up. We want to offer something to all students to attend and looking kind of at an outdoor movie night. We know the student body wants something like a dance, carnival, or movie night. We want to figure out what we can plan in a 2-month window that would be realistic and cost effective. So we're excited as a club to plan another event, hopefully as big as homecoming, for the students to get involved and enjoy. But that's about it.
Great, thank you. And I would like to just, some of the concerns of students that you voiced are actively being looked at in the Superintendent Student Advisory Committee. So I appreciate you raising them, and I don't want folks on, others viewing to think that those are not being specifically addressed because they are as part of that process. But thank you for bringing those to our attention. That's really helpful.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Okay, let's see what's next. Now we have employee recognition. This is a great, it's employee, it's volunteer. We should probably retitle it maybe to make it a little broader. But we have 3 categories this evening. We have Teacher of the Month, Employee of the Month, and Volunteer of the Month. So we're going to start with the teacher. I'd like to congratulate James Messer. He was selected as Teacher of the Month, and here is what people had to say about him and their nominations. Mr. Messer is a very passionate teacher, which I find really awesome. I have him for both biology and woodworking, and his knowledge of both subjects is truly remarkable. Mr. Messer's biology A class is the best science class I've ever had by far. His style of teaching is pretty laid back and allows for a lot of student-led discussions and lessons, which I really love. He jokes around with students, which is always a lot of fun. All in all, I think he's a great teacher and deserves Teacher of the Month. So thank you, Mr. Messer, for all of your hard work. Obviously, the kids are loving it and getting a lot out of it. Is he with us this evening? And if so, would he like to say anything?
I do not see him, Sarah.
I do not. Okay, great. So we will have his framed certificates available next time he's in the building if he hasn't already received it. But thank you again, Mr. Messer. All right, now we're going to go to our Employee of the Month, Elizabeth Maxwell, and here's what people submitted in their nominations. Liz is a phenomenal teaching assistant. She loves working with kids, consistently building relationships with them and going out of her way to support when she can. She's the most flexible, positive, kind-hearted, and understanding TA that our teachers and students have the pleasure to work with. We always know that we can ask Liz to go above and beyond to support all students and staff. And perhaps most to the point, we love Liz. So Liz, thank you so much for all of your hard work. And if you are here, if you would like to say anything, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Honestly, I just want to thank everyone who wrote those amazing words about me. I honestly cannot do what I do without my special ed team and family. I work at a very small self-contained program, so we kind of work together very closely to support our kids. And I also just could not do what I do every day without them. There's definitely tough days, and we just build each other up every day. So I wish they can be up here with me. So that's it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your work. And if you have not gotten your certificate, it will be available for you next time you're in the building. All right, and then we have our volunteer of the month, Miss Fiona Bezaire, who Dr. Johnson spoke to a little bit earlier. She is president of the Booster Club. And I am the Booster Club rep from the board, and I know how hard she works. Yeah, so I just want to chime in with my 2 cents. She works incredibly hard. She runs a very tight meeting, and they have raised a lot of money, and they've been very generous with it. So we're incredibly appreciative. So here is what others had to say about her. Fiona became the Husky Booster Club president in 2018. Since then, she's put in endless hours into the organization. She's worked with Nicole Ebson, our athletic director, to organize the teachers' tailgating event. She also worked with the school to set up the fundraiser for new mics for the theater department. Fiona's constantly advocating not only for the boosters, but to support the school. She's tireless in trying to find ways to get parents and faculty involved to help boosters raise money for the students. Fiona goes above and beyond to help our kids get what they need for a positive, fulfilling high school experience. And so Fiona, thank you so much for all of your hard work and all of your generosity. I don't know if you want to say a few words, you're more than welcome to.
Well, thank you so much for those very kind words. I'm not sure who they came from, but thank you to whomever they came from. Yeah, you know, I got really, really lucky in these past few years during COVID, having an amazing team that has gone truly above and beyond. Things they've done, I looked at them twice and went, "Are you sure?" And they did, and because of them, we've been able to raise this kind of money and give these things back to the school. So just for some clarification for those of you who are here, the $40,000 that we gave towards the wall in the front entryway was to celebrate the boosters' 50th anniversary. So that kind of says how long this organization has been around, how robust it can be. And then, Greg, I wanted to correct you slightly in that we were able to come up with an extra $4,000 to top us over $40,000 for this year. To the kids, we bought the Whisper Room that was requested, which is, I'm really excited about it. It's this room where kids can go in and make podcasts, and it's an enclosed space, so it's going to be really quiet. So in any case, we've done a lot of work. There's a lot more to do. The best thing that we can ask for from the school, which we've gotten from, is supporting us and promoting us. Getting the word out who we are is actually still a huge challenge for us. I just can't even, I don't know what to do except for to say it's a huge challenge for us. We do have a golfing event coming up on Monday, June 6th. Tickets are available online on our website, so we would love to see you all out there. In any case, thank you very much for this opportunity, for this award. And it's really wonderful working with everybody at the school and making this happen. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And one thing that I think is really especially helpful in terms of the boosters sort of augmenting funding is that they can make us much more agile in procuring items for students. So as needs arise, they have more agility than sometimes the district does because of budget cycles and all the rest of it and procurement hurdles. And, you know, it can be a lot of work. So thank you very much for rising to the challenge and meeting the need of our students, you know, and anticipating and being able to react to things as they arise, like the microphones. So thank you. And great work. Okay, on to public comments. So public comments are not meant to be a conversation with the board. They are for the community to raise issues to the board's attention. We ask that they be germane to items that are on the agenda. We have a board policy that was put into effect a couple of years ago that we're beginning to be a little bit more disciplined about that allows for up to 30 minutes of public comment. So Gail, I will keep time, and if you want to start calling our public commenters to unmute, we can get started. I'm so sorry, Gail, you're still muted.
I'm sorry. We have one live speaker tonight, and that's Jackson Hassler. And we do have some written comments that I will include in the minutes.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Jackson has an older version of Zoom, so I can't unmute him. I could promote him to panelist if you approve that.
Yeah, if that's quick, or he can call in, of course, is another option, but I don't have a problem with making him a panelist if that helps.
Jackson, you can unmute and talk.
Jackson, I am sorry, we cannot make out what you're saying. If you have access to a phone, it might be better to call in.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I can call in if it's not gonna work. All
Yeah,
right.
calling in might be better. Yeah. Gail, can you, do we have a means of communicating that you can message him the number?
It's on the, hold on.
We could probably put it in the chat. That helps. Sorry. Okay, great. Gail, how does this work? When somebody calls in to make public comment, is there anything that we need to do on our end, or just?
Can you give us some guidance on that?
Yeah, well, so Jackson just messaged, I joined, but it says I'm an attendee. So I guess if Ed could raise Jackson to a panelist, maybe that would help. I'm guessing it's the mechanism, but.
He is a panelist right now. See his screen is showing up here.
Right, but I'm saying it on the phone.
We've got it. Ed, I've got it. Hold
Oh,
on.
you have it? Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Jackson, are you able to talk now?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Sorry about that. Okay, I guess I'll start. Good evening. Thanks to our Board of Education for all you do for us students. My name is Jackson. I'm a senior here at OPRF. And before I represent my views, I would just like to say that I don't seek to like invalidate anybody else's point of view on this. Like, I understand that nobody here has lived through another pandemic like this one. So we haven't had to make the decisions that we now have before us. But I do seek to like kind of express like the feelings and hopes that I, as well as those aligned with me on this issue, like have, particularly like on the issue of mask mandates. So we have been in this pandemic for 2 years. So like over half my high school experience has in some way been disrupted by the pandemic. My generation has been asked to make numerous sacrifices for those who are more vulnerable to this virus than we are. This is completely reasonable because it's all of our responsibility to take care of those who are the most vulnerable. However, it is important that we acknowledge the negative consequences this has had in our generation. It is also important that we balance safety concerns with quality of life and mental health concerns. We have already done this to a great extent by opening our school for in-person learning this past fall. Masking is not the end of the world, but it is not necessarily a small ask of our student population. Seeing one another's faces is like a normal part of human life. So like when I'm able to remove my mask, such as during lunch, it gives me like an appreciation of like the ability to breathe fresh air, which is something I used to take for granted. I understand that even like we all have to make sacrifices to like protect people, and that's completely reasonable. But I think this is probably something that shouldn't be like dragged out longer than it needs to be. And so it's a little disheartening to have to be asked to continue to mask up when like a lot of us have gotten 3 shots. A lot of us, myself included, have already like caught the virus. We have a really strong vaccination rate here at OPRF that will prevent the vast majority of our students and staff from getting severely ill. We have like the Associated Press reports that an estimated 73% of Americans have immunity against the Omicron variant. And our recent COVID numbers show 4 positive cases in the period of a week, our most recent COVID numbers. So that's a 98% decrease. I was honestly like even surprised to hear how much of a decrease that was, like a 98% decrease from the 172 cases we had the first week of January. And that's a great thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like pandemic fatigue is real, and life before COVID almost feels like a different world now. So while I do like respect people on the other side of this view and think their view should also be taken into consideration, it would feel amazing to be able to like spend the last couple months of my high school experience like interacting with my peers in like a more normal way. And last thing, this would provide like some major benefits for our high school population, which is like on average, both at like a particularly low risk for COVID, but also like a high need for like sense of normalcy from like a mental health and like developmental perspective. So that's all I had to say. Thank you guys for hearing me.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jackson. And I want to commend Jackson as a student for making public comment. And I would encourage any students who might be watching, if that's something that would interest them, this is a way, of course, of communicating with the board and making your views known. So we love to hear, especially the student voice. So thank you. Okay, all right, on to the rest of the evening here. Okay, so we have a consent agenda. Is there anything that the board, there's several things that we are going to pull because we still need to address them more thoroughly. So I am going to pull B, item B. And is that all from this? Yes, okay. So I move to approve consent items A, the open and closed minutes of January 27, February 10 and 14, 2022, and declare that the audio tapes of the closed session minutes of July 2020 be destroyed. C, policies for second reading. D, policies for first reading. E, treasurer's bond. Sorry, give me one quick second here. It's for, okay, this one I want to explain just a little more. To approve the Board of Education to award Alliant the treasurer's bond for 1 year at a premium of $27,083 to be paid in fiscal year 2022. We also have a donation to approve. It is a monetary donation from Mr. Thomas Jacobs, whose children graduated in 94, 2000, and 2001. Check disbursements and resolutions. As presented, the monthly financial report for December 2021 is presented. The monthly treasurer report for December 2021 as presented. The hotel contract with Chicago Marriott Downtown for 2022's prom for a cost of $52,000 as presented. The costs are, of course, recouped from ticket sales. And lastly, the contract with Ideal Charter for athletic and student activities charter bus trips for a total approximate cost of $238,782 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. And because I glossed over it, is there anything else anybody else wanted to pull besides that item B, personnel? All right, Gail, would you mind calling the roll?
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Martiri,
Yes.
Mr. Kovsky,
Yes.
Dr. Mohanraj,
Yes.
and Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, item B, which is the personnel recommendations, we're actually going to hold to the very end of the meeting because we need to go back into closed session before we can vote on that item. So our next issue up is the COVID mitigations. Dr. Johnson, I will leave that to you.
Sarah, can I
Yeah.
can I request a 5-minute recess?
Yes.
Because we had a previous meeting, so it's now been.
No need to explain. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. We will take a 5-minute break. We will come back at 8:17.
Okay, thank you.
Ed, can you hear me? Ed Tang?
Yes, I can hear you.
We can do this either way. I can share my screen or you could share your screen, but I do want to go through that that slide deck as I introduce this item. So let me know how you.
Yeah, you can share your screen. That's fine.
All right, I'll take care of it.
You want to do it when we come back, right?
Yeah, I'll just need to take the sharing back from you.
Yeah, once we come back from break, I'll stop sharing, and when you're ready, you can share.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Dr. Johnson, what's your preference? Would you rather we forwarded the slides or would you like to have control of
Oh
it?
no, I'll do it. I'll do it. It's fine, Chris. Thanks.
Okay, I see Marianne. Board members, as you get back, if you wouldn't mind just turning your camera on so I can know that you're here, that would be helpful. We'll get started once everyone's back. Thanks, Ralph. I see ya. Okay, I think that's pretty much everyone. And Gail's back? Okay, are folks ready to begin? All right, let's talk about some COVID mitigations.
All right, how does that for screen sharing? Does that work for everybody?
Looks good.
All right, so thanks for entertaining this conversation, everybody, today. As we all know, where we are in the world of COVID mitigations has gone through a whirlwind of change over the past 2 weeks or so. And so to help me with this conversation are a few people. First, Carolyn Roselli, our legal counsel from Robin Schwartz is here to help answer any questions and make sure I don't get anything wrong as I'm going through this information to introduce things. Secondly, I also want to give props to Shalima Francois Blue, who has been instrumental throughout this whole process, leading our COVID team. Karen Sullivan has helped her, and our entire admin team has, weighed in and discussed this at various times. But we really at a point right now where things are beginning to change rapidly. And the purpose of this conversation with the board tonight is to really weigh in on the path forward for us at OPRF. So I'm going to go through a quick kind of history of the past 2 weeks before we get to kind of the questions at hand. First, as I'm sure many listening are aware, back on February 4th, there was a ruling out of Sangamon County that basically allowed plaintiffs who were named in that case, there was a variety of suits that came together, to not adhere to existing masking requirements, weekly COVID-19 testing for employees, and quarantining protocols for students or employees. There's some debate that we've seen or read about the extent to which this ruling applied to those who are not named as plaintiffs, but the advice that we've received from our legal counsel and from what I can tell, the general consensus is that it really specifically applied at this point only to those who were named in the case, or in the suits, I should say. This was appealed, and I'll get to that in just a moment, but an event that occurred before that appeal to that case was decided was that the emergency rules that school districts have relied on throughout the, actually beginning on September 17th, expired on February 14th. This was as a result of a direct vote from JCAR, the Joint Committee of Administrative Rules in Springfield, to not renew the IDPH guidelines that we were operating under. This meant really two things for public schools as of February 14th. First, masking requirements in schools, while still at that point certainly in existence because of the pre-existing governor's executive order, which was in place back in August, they still existed, but they became more open to challenges because the way that schools could execute those or enforce, I should say, those masking requirements was reliant in large part upon those emergency rules. And secondly, the exclusion language that permitted the quarantining of students who were asymptomatic expired. This meant that kids who were close contacts, who were not vaccinated, who were asymptomatic, really could no longer be excluded from school at this point. This ruling here had strong implications for the finding of the appellate court as well, and you see that here on this next slide. While certainly even at this point, the executive orders regarding masking certainly remain in effect, basically the appellate court upheld the decision that came from February 4th. But it also focused attention on local control. The idea basically is that while there are still these executive orders in place, they are not enforceable, and how exactly school districts proceed is up to those school districts. The effect of this has been interesting across the state and has been kind of an evolving thing here within this community as well. Up till this point, this district has only made one change to our mitigations, and it's in direct response to the JCAR ruling that I talked about a few slides back. And that is that we ceased the exclusion of asymptomatic students who are not vaccinated, effective on February 17th when we came back. All other mitigations do remain in place, and they're all listed here on this page. Okay, these are the things that we are currently doing. There have been no other changes. Okay, I'm not going to read that point by point. We can certainly discuss that as we move on. So some information to consider as we move forward, as we kind of think about how we want to proceed. As Jackson Hessler mentioned in his comments appropriately, 82% of OPRF students and 93% of our employees are vaccinated. We have had for quite some time, and of course we continue to have a very high vaccination rate. Over the past week, both Oak Park and River Forest have had over 100 positive cases per 100,000. And according to the CDC guidelines that you see on this page, this puts us in the high transmission category. So the transmission rate within the community is still in that high area. I should point out that the CDC does recommend that, hey, if you're in this high area, this is one of those triggers to consider masking. Additionally, some information to consider. As of February 22, this was just a few days ago, both Oak Park and River Forest had a positivity rate that puts us in the low category according to the CDC guidelines. All right, and you can see what those percentages are down below and how kind of that maps out. Okay. A little bit more information to share out. The Village of Oak Park reported a 24% decrease in COVID-19 cases during the last week and a 79% decrease during the past month. This is just to illustrate that what's going on in Oak Park and River Forest really is paralleling what we see and we hear throughout the state and across the country in a lot of ways, that rates are on a fairly swift decline. Something else to be aware of, there were conversations about masking specifically, mitigations generally over this past week in both districts 90 and 97. And while those conversations were a little bit different in those two districts, at this point, both school districts are maintaining their masking requirement for the time being. Neither have a date set for when any shifts would be forthcoming. I know that, like us, those districts I'm in collaboration with the superintendents and others in those districts. The conversations that they're having are about when do we make a change? If we make a change, how does that go? The D90 actually put the point up to a vote, and D97 is actively discussing it. But again, nothing concrete has been set in either of our feeder districts. Okay. And I do want to point out that this number here is low at this point. Beginning late last week, we got the results of surveys back that of approximately the 850 school districts in the state of Illinois. Now it's well more than 700 of them at this point have reported that they are mask optional. There was another poll done just earlier this week that we got an email about today stating that in our immediate region, the group that we call West 40, it's a group of school districts in West Cook County. About 60% of those districts are mask optional at this point, some version of mask optional. And so as a school district, we're really trying to figure out the best path forward. So right now, where we stand, the conversations we've had internally have resulted in what you kind of see on this last slide. We have no immediate plans in any way to stop shield testing, the testing that we've been doing for quite some time. And the other protocols that we've had in place throughout the pandemic, we of course want to maintain. The questions in front of us are really these ones on the bottom of the screen. Of course, it's about masking. But also there's a question back in November, we made the shift to requiring shield testing for all in-season athletes. Any input on that point would be appreciated. And additionally, required weekly testing for all unvaccinated employees is something that we are currently doing that we've talked about. It has been required for the vast majority of the school year, but any thoughts or input on that as well. And so that really is the scope of the conversation. So, I don't know what else to say before turning it over. I guess quickly, I'll turn it over to Carolyn Roselli to see if what needs to be edited or otherwise commented on before we open it up for questions and discussion with the board.
I don't really have anything to add. I think you did a nice job summarizing where we are and that it really is up to local control now because their executive orders are still in effect, and that's something to be aware of. But right now, the state has no power to enforce those because the TRO was upheld. So as a result of that, there's language in that appellate decision, although they determined that the appeal was moot because the rules were not renewed. They did indicate that they really added language within that order related to local control. So.
Yeah. I guess I could say one other thing. There's a question about like what agency the board has kind of to pursue with that. In addition to that notion of local control that Kellen was talking about a moment ago, we do have a board policy that's referenced at the end of the board memo here that was enacted several months back. That in the event that the emergency rules no longer apply or they're shifted, how to move forward with mitigations is within the realm of the superintendent and designees. And so that's why this is a discussion item at this point and not brought to this board for a vote. But I know a lot of other districts have despite that have said, hey, we want to have the option to vote on this item, which is certainly something we could do as a district if this board would like to do that. But at this point, it's a discussion because this is where we are in the conversation, and that's where our policy leads us. So with that said, it is open for feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Marianne? You're still muted. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. I have a question. Just because I'm not quite sure what happens in this situation. So in my own classroom at UIC, I have one student who requested to be able to Zoom into class. We've been in person since the fall. And the reason, and we, the faculty have been encouraged to accommodate such requests as possible within the structure of our classes. And in my class, it's certainly manageable for me to do that. And my student has a immunocompromised family member. He wears a mask even on Zoom because he wears a mask basically all the time at home to protect this family member who's at high risk. So if we have students in similar positions in our district, and if we go to masking optional, is there any mechanism for students to participate remotely at that point if they feel that they might be putting family members at risk, or is that just not going to be possible? I'm not sure what's allowed by the state or what the plans would be. Thank you.
Brad, do you want me to jump in first and then you can
You
follow
can.
up?
I think the answer is pretty cut and dry, right? So feel free.
Yeah, so in terms of accommodating someone that has an immunocompromised family member, that's not something we would be accommodating or providing remote to that in that situation. However, other districts that have gone mask optional do have immunocompromised students, and we have obligations under 504 and the IDA to meet on those and look at accommodations for those students. And there can be a range of accommodations for those students that have a disabling condition. And some of that will look at things, obviously, to keep that student in person. However, if it comes to a point where that student has, a recommendation from their physician that the team is considering for that student to be remote or to engage in some type of distance learning, that's something that the IEP team or 504 team could consider for that immunocompromised student. Brad, do you have anything to add?
No, the only thing I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, the options that those students would have would be the exact same options that they would have had in a previous year, regardless of COVID. So the type of, I want to be clear on one additional point there, the type of kind of hybrid learning, right, that that we experienced last year is not an option. That's nothing that we can continue to pursue. So we would be talking about, something other than that in the range of accommodations that we can provide.
Which could be like homebound instruction and other things like that. Yep.
Thank you. That's helpful to me.
Questions, comments from other board members? Crickets. I got nothing. Oh, Tom, yes.
Yeah, I have a question before I want to kind of weigh in a little bit, and that is, it's 2 months ago. We had the Oak Park Department of Public Health, involved, and I'm just trying to understand where they fit in this in terms of voice and what's changed. And I'm sure it's related to the various things, but I'd like some clarity on that if you wouldn't mind.
You know, from a legal perspective about kind of the authority of local public health bodies, I'm going to rely on Carolyn to answer that. But I also want to say that even recently, we are in collaboration and conversation with Oak Park Public Health. But Carolyn, do you want to weigh on it from a legal perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout the pandemic, districts have been regularly consulting and relying on their health departments for guidance. And even, throughout the ISB and IDPH guidance that they've been issuing, that districts have been following, as well as executive orders, it does talk about consulting with your local health departments. And so, early on in the pandemic, we were advising, to lessen your liability and to, keep your district as safe as possible, to really rely on what your health department was recommending. I do think that has changed over the last couple of weeks. The fact that the state can no longer enforce certain mandates, as well as, the numbers and districts, the information being given to districts that they do have this local control at this point to make their own decisions. So I think, continued collaboration and finding out, what the health departments are recommending is important. However, I don't, if the district decided to go a different direction as the health department at this point, I think there is I'm not as concerned with the risks of liability to the district at this point.
Thank you. Questions from other board members? So I have just a couple questions, Greg, based upon what you said. You indicated the D90, I thought they were having a vote. Did they postpone their vote, or did they vote not to change things?
I don't want to, I want to make sure I speak
If you
correct-
know, if
correct.
you don't know, yeah.
Secondhand, what I've heard is that what happened was that they voted to not make a change to the COVID mitigations at this time. I think they're looking for more information, and so if anybody has more specific knowledge on that, I'm willing to hear it. But that's my understanding, Sarah. I didn't watch the meeting myself, though.
Yeah. And so then I have another question maybe for Caroline. So we've heard rumors, for example, that the disaster proclamation, et cetera, might be rescinded as early as early March. And I admittedly am confused by all of these sort of not conflicting, but various layers of authority. So what, if any, bearing would that have on any of the school issues?
Yeah, so throughout the pandemic, the governor has been issuing disaster proclamations, declaring the pandemic a disaster. And so, the current one that is in place is due to expire on March 6th. So I think that's kind of, you've heard probably that date floating around a little bit. If for some reason, and the governor's ability to issue executive orders, which he's done throughout the pandemic, is tied to that. So when there's a disaster proclamation in place, he has the ability to issue executive orders that he's done similar to what he's done in this throughout the last 2 years. If that expires on the 6th and he doesn't renew the disaster proclamation, then the executive orders, he's not going to be issuing more executive orders unless for some reason things change again and there's a new variant or he declares another disaster proclamation. But so that would impact the executive orders that, he is issuing, has issued. So that could have an impact in terms of the current executive orders, that we've been indicating are still in place, even though he has no ability to enforce them right now. That could impact those. I think there's also, I guess there's some guessing out there that if he doesn't issue a new disaster proclamation, he'll make an announcement that maybe, at that point, he's no longer, going to have an executive order to mandate masks in schools. And is one of the public statements he made prior to this appeal when he decided to, as of next Monday, throughout the state indicate that there's no more indoor masking mandate. He, alluded to the fact that potentially maybe he would make it look at a change in schools a couple weeks out from that. So I think there's some suspicions about that, but there's nothing definitive as to what will happen when that disaster proclamation is up on March 6th.
In a slightly more self-interested question while we're on the topic, that would also affect the ability of the board to continue to meet virtually. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we'd have to relook
So
at
we would
that.
be
Yep.
fully in person at that point. Okay. So I'm happy to have a conversation around masking, whether the board should be in person or not. There's been sort of conflicting views on that I've heard. So Marianne, I see you have a question.
I do. I just want to, let me just confirm this. So my understanding of the dates right now, we're now at the end of February. March 28th is when we have spring break, correct? And I've been trying to track what's happening with the vaccinations for the under 5 age group. And my understanding is that we had hoped for an approval in early February. That has been delayed because they found that 2 shots, the tests, the tests that were done with 2 shots were not effective for the 2 to 6 year olds. And so there's another trial running with 3 shots, and we'll have results for that, I believe in April. So, and I'm fairly hopeful, optimistic from what I've been reading that will at that point be approved. So, so given all of that, and given the the fact that we still currently have high transmission rates, I'm very sympathetic to the student who gave public comment, and to everyone who is very tired of masks. I am extremely tired of masks myself. I teach in a mask, and I'm tired of it. I miss seeing my students' faces in person. I guess I would say, I think we should bear in mind that it's about to get much warmer here, right? And so it's sort of ridiculous to say that, but it's true. Like starting this Saturday, we're going to see a jump in temperature. We're going to be able to spend a lot more time outdoors soon. I just had a work trip to California, and I had 5 days where I was either outside for work, or we were eating in a restaurant, or I was alone in my hotel room. And so there was essentially almost no reason to wear a mask at any point in there. And so I guess I would say to the community, I know it's hard to wait longer at this point, and we are all very tired of it. But I would, having put almost 2 years into this, it feels to me like we're jumping the gun to not wait a few more weeks, essentially, and that we're potentially undoing a lot of the good that we did. And I am particularly concerned for, what this will mean for disabled families, immunocompromised families, those with children under age 5, those with elderly relatives living in the household, etc. I know that the risk to the students, our students, is probably relatively low, given their vaccination rates, but with high transmission, they can still very easily transmit to others who are at much greater risk. So that's my thinking at the moment. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. Greg, I'm sorry, there's a question that I forgot to ask. Do we have any sense of what the Faculty Senate or what other staff members might be thinking about this? Because obviously what goes for the students is going to apply to the staff as well.
Sure. Again, I want to be careful about speaking too completely for anybody on this point, but I have had conversations, and we've had conversations internally about this with teachers and Faculty Senate specifically, Faculty Senate leadership, I should say. And I think the approach is pragmatic. I mean, I think that there's the way that OPRF teachers and whatnot think about this is representative of even this conversation, right? There are everybody who's on we have faculty who are on every level of the spectrum on this point. And so the question is one of, if we are going to make changes, how do we implement them in ways that is safe and reasonable for the questions that invariably are going to come up. The one of immunocompromised situations and context that has already come up here has come up in my conversations. How do we handle that in the schools? As long and given the fact that we understand that if we go to masking as strongly recommended, which is something that we would certainly do, and rather than saying, hey, masks are a free-for-all at this point, or we're demasking or any language like that, shifting to masks being strongly recommended is certainly something that is would have to be school-wide, right? We couldn't have different areas of the school operating differently than others, right? So it's really kind of a universal change that we would have to make here. So,
May I paraphrase what I think you just said?
Sure.
There's no sense of any strong consensus on any position. Is that accurate?
I think we have people in the building who are all along the entire spectrum. But I think it's also fair to say that given where we are right now and the uncertainty of it, if there is if there's like an immediate decision to make, might be best to just be kind of conservative about this and kind of stay the course with our masking, given the fact that there is this level of uncertainty. But it is one that is actively discussed daily in the school. So,
And sorry, I don't mean to monopolize, but I just want to clarify what you need from us, Craig, tonight. You want a sense from each board member as to what our position is on this issue specifically around mitigations generally, but masking in particular. Do you want us to also weigh in on whether or not the board would actually like to vote on this, or if we want to leave it to your discretion?
I mean, if the board chooses to do that, I'm just pointing it out there. I wanted to explain why this was coming as a discussion item, which is why I brought that up earlier, right? And if the board wants to go a different path, they certainly have the prerogative to do that. If the board doesn't want to discuss it, that's fine. I just want to make sure that it's clear.
Thank you. All right. Ralph, Tom, Kabrib, anyone else want to weigh in?
I'll just say really quickly, I don't ever want to make a decision as a health professional, epidemiologist, what have you. So I will always wait for or listen to the recommendation on our health professionals, or Department of Health, whatever that is. So I'm not going to offer my opinion because it's not my expertise. So, and to do so, I think is irresponsible. It's more of an emotional decision. I understand it, but when you're talking about trying to get out of this pandemic and get the tail end of it, emotions do get high. I understand it. Frustration is there. I'm tired of wearing it. I'm tired of not having my almost 5-year-old play sports because sort of think all these things. I'm tired of it, but I also don't want to have any setbacks and make it even worse. So whatever the recommendation is of the health professionals that we hold in high esteem, that's what I'm going to follow every time.
Yeah, Martiri, I'm going to jump in just real quick. I agree with what Kabrib just said, and I think it's a little don't have enough information to make an intelligent decision to change course now, and there are ramifications of changing course, and I understand everyone's frustration, but I have to say at this juncture, until I hear from the medical professionals that the right thing to do is to change all these other mitigations and or do away with them and or modify them, then I would rather keep them in place, default to safety until we know better.
And Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the need for that I'm not an expert in this area. Okay. I'm challenged because there's just so many different voices out there, even in the medical world, to kind of get an answer. So this is not an easy situation. And, it's obviously complicated by, I think some of the points raised by our student is, in terms of all the mental health and other concerns associated. So I certainly would like to hear who we use as our medical counsel, and make sure we take that into order and mainly the administration take that into order. I don't think the board needs to be an intermediary in that. I liked the words, if there's a shift, I think it needs to be well managed. And I liked the words that Greg used, which were, strong, highly recommended. What you used the words, Greg, that sounded better than what I just said. What were they?
Strongly recommended.
Strongly recommended. I mean, and we've got, young adults, and, I don't know what that would have. I know in the environments I'm in, in the offices and other environments, we are seeing this shift happen at a rapid rate. So, I mean, at one way, I don't want to be the last man standing. Okay. If we're that level of conservatism. So I'd like to hear I'd like to listen to what our council says from a health professional standpoint.
So Greg, we had, or we still have, but they haven't convened recently, our group of medical professionals who were helping us with, especially in the earlier stages of the pandemic, kind of figuring out what our mitigations would be to reopen.
Yes.
I'm wondering if they might be a group that we would want to rely on here, because some of them are parents, former parents, et cetera. They're very invested in the district. They're very familiar with what we've been doing so far. Perhaps that would be a group who could offer some insight. Do we have, maybe you said this and I missed it, but do we have any recommendation from the Oak Park Health Department?
Not like we used to have, right? Earlier, I think Carolyn Rizal did a nice job of speaking of that. So not, this is your path forward. I'm almost certain through my conversations that I have had with Oak Park Public Health that masking is something that would still be recommended by her as we move forward. And I have had email communications from our medical health professionals. And not with the whole group coming together, but a strand of email communications, and it's split, right? The strongly recommended language that I've talked about here was kind of endorsed by that crew as well. But that is certainly something that, as we continue to move on and the data kind of evolves and the conversation shifts, we'll still be in contact with all those with all of those professionals to help guide us. So I think that's the right advice for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and just to, I guess, round off our group here, I mean, I'm leaning towards strongly recommended language versus a mandate. But I agree that more information would be nice and important to have. So my thought is, why don't we have this again as an item at the next COW, which will be after March 6th date. We might have some, I doubt it, sounds optimistic, but maybe we'll have some clarity from IDPH, the governor's office, et cetera. And we'll also have, to Marianne's point, some warmer weather by that point, which should also help the transmission rate drop. Because that transmission rate being high still, I mean, I don't really understand how it could be given the positivity rate so low, but I'm no statistician. I will just let that be. But it would be nice to see both of those sort of move down a little bit. So I think that this is just a to be continued conversation is my sense of it. Does that sound right for the rest of the board?
I'll just add in that I can't remember off the top of my head all of the things that are used for calculating whether you should shift or not, but one of them I know is hospital capacity, and we are close, but we are not quite at the hospital capacity that is recommended for removing a mitigation. And so again, we're headed in the right direction. We're really very close, but I think it's going to be another week or two, maybe a couple of weeks. There's Greg, I think maybe that might be helpful to have at the next meeting if possible. I think there's something like 4 major measures that get looked at: transmission rates, vaccination rate in the community, hospital capacity, and there's one more, and I'm just blanking on it, I think. So getting a sense of where we are on all of those major ones. They were mentioned at the last D97 meeting. They went through the list. If that's helpful.
I can see what they identified and how they identified it.
Yeah.
The hospitalization rate is something that has been discussed quite a bit. It hasn't been something that we have used in this district to make our decisions.
It's not hospitalization. Sorry if I misspoke. It's hospital capacity, and the capacity is not quite where you want it to be yet. It's close. It's like 18 versus 20% or something like that. So,
all right, good. I'll see what I can find on that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Greg, does that give you the direction that you need for the time being?
It absolutely does. So we're staying the course. We'll continue the conversation, relying on the various voices as we move forward, and we'll talk more.
Yeah, and it sounds like our next inflection point, particularly for at least one of our students who I believe is likely still watching this conversation, Jackson, would be probably that March 10th date, which is our next meeting of the entire board.
Sounds good.
So, okay, thank you.
Yep.
I wish we were different. Okay, so next we have an action item, which is our resolution to abate and increase. No, excuse me, I said that totally wrong. Let me start that one over. Resolution to abate the increase to the 2021 real estate tax levy. The administration is recommending that so I'm moving that the Board of Education approve the attached resolution to abate the increase to the 2021 real estate tax levy in the amount of $822,105.79. Is there a second?
Second.
And Greg, if you could please break that into plainer English for people, because that does sound very confusing.
Sounds good.
I've heard all this before. It still confuses me. So.
No, sure, of course. And actually, to do a better job than I could do, Brian Imhoff, our accountant, is here to explain what this all is. So Brian, take it away.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. So tonight's resolution is in relation to Public Act 102-0519, which we discussed a little bit back at the December board meeting when the levy was being approved, and then in more detail at the Community Finance Committee meeting most recently. So under this piece of legislation, taxing districts governed by PTEL are able to recapture levy dollars that were not received because of refunds issued by the county within the past 12 months. During that time frame, as President Spivey mentioned, the county treasurer calculated that OPRF had a little over $822,000 of refunds issued. If the district takes no action, the county treasurer will add this amount automatically to the tax levy that was approved by the board last December. However, by adopting tonight's resolution, we will instead be directing the county to abate this additional levy and not recapture those levy dollars. And the only other thing I wanted to point out is that this additional levy happens outside of the tax cap. So whether or not the board would approve this resolution to accept or to abate the dollars, or whether they do nothing and accept the dollars, it has no cumulative effect on future year tax levies in terms of how much we are capped for future levies.
All right, thank you. Questions from any board members?
You also mentioned, I know that our finance committee meeting, I don't know if Tom's about to say the same thing. We actually budgeted for not taking this already. So the community actually understands that. So you can elaborate on that part, please.
Yes, so at the time the budget for fiscal year 22 was done, this levy was not part of what we budgeted in terms of property tax revenues. Some of this levy would obviously carry over into fiscal year 23. So depending on what the board decides with this resolution, we would adjust that budget accordingly.
Thank you. Questions from other board members?
I have one question and then I'm a little bit of comment, if I may. The question is for Brian, which is, this is a 1-year abatement, is the process such that each year we would need to either, do what we're doing right now? We would have to do an abatement, or it would roll into our taxes, assuming this thing continues. It's a new law, right? But we have to act every year to signal we are interested or not interested in this.
Correct. We would make this decision on a year-by-year basis.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah, just maybe for the benefit of others, and Kabrib can provide, this was a discussion topic by the Community Finance Committee. They had a chance to understand and weigh in on it. And it was the consensus, that's an advisory committee, but it was the consensus of all members of that committee that we act as is being recommended today. So there was some good discussion on it, but that was their consensus based on the things that Kabrib even mentioned, that it really would be incremental revenue to the district that I need water. That's it.
So I have a question, and this is more for sort of the viewing public. What effect does our abatement of these taxes have on any individual taxpayer in our community?
So the impact would be if we chose not to abate. There would be a slight increase to the property tax bill. Now, by the time you spread $822,000 across the entire district, it would be fairly minimal to an individual taxpayer. But by abating, we're essentially saying what we approved in December as a board, that's the levy and that's it.
And I think, Sarah, if I'm saying it correctly, we've basically abated this for all the years past because it was never done. So the new practice would be to retax. I mean, there's never been this recapture ability. That was the new law.
Got it. All right, Marianne.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. So I'm gonna just go back a step. The law was put in place because people were appealing taxes, and in those appeals, as a result of those appeals, the levy was being significantly reduced. That's what's behind this law, correct?
Yes. So when we look at annual tax collections, what the district levies and what it collects, there's usually a little bit of a gap there for whatever appeals get approved in process.
I understand. Okay. So I think the two things I would say are just that I suspect that there are quite a few communities in Illinois for whom this is a significant and difficult decision because they are so short of funds. But we are not in that position here. So I suspect we're all in agreement that we don't need to do this. But I do want to kind of note that this property tax appeal thing is a difficult issue generally for the community, right? Because part of the problem is that the people who tend to appeal their taxes, my understanding is they tend to be the wealthier homeowners who can afford lawyers, even if the lawyers are working on commission, or have the time and leisure to go to the village and work with the person who can help them with that process. And just from talking to, now I'm going to blank on his name, the property tax assessor guy who was elected. No, not Ali El-Safar, the one who's overseeing it.
Oh, Fritz Kagi?
Fritz Kagi, right? So from his presentations on this, my understanding is that there's a lot of discrepancy, and especially with high-end commercial properties and so on, and how much they take out in appeals. So I guess I just wanted to say, for like people who are wondering, like, why would such a law get passed where you might get taxed twice? I think I think there probably are equity arguments for it. I just think they mostly don't apply to us. So, okay. That's all I
Thank
have.
you. Kabreem?
Just one comment to what Marianne said. I would 100% agree that it's wealthier homeowners that can do it. It's really just knowing you can and remembering the dates to actually do it. And I have my own opinions about the current person holds that office and how it's been done. I would say a little disingenuously to even appeal anymore based on how the office was altered. So I'll hold those comments. But yeah, it's for me, the important thing about Oak Park, also particularly Oak Park, is our diversity, and we have funding is not our problem, right? So to Marion's point, some communities probably needed this law, but at this point we didn't need this at all. So just for the people that's actually watching this, it's the reason why we had this discussion in the committee, finance committee was, but my main reason, we do have a very healthy fund balance and budget altogether. So.
All right. I'm assuming Ralph would raise his hand if he had any questions. And I don't see that happening. So I believe, is that right,
That's a
Ralph?
fair assumption, Sarah.
Good. All right. So I think we're ready to call the roll, Gail, if you wouldn't mind.
Mr. Martieri,
Yes.
Mr. Kovsky,
Yes.
Dr. Mohanraj,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Imhoff, for your presentation. All right, so our next action item is approval of an MOA. We will not be able to take action on that right now, although we will later on this evening, presumably. So at this point, our remaining items are information items. I think at this point, it makes sense for us to go back. So somebody just says, am I missing something? Makes sense for us to go back into closed session. So I move to recess open session and resume closed session. Is that the right motion, Gail?
You can just announce that we're going back into.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
All right. We're going back into closed session, everyone. And it's hard to say how long this conversation will take. Our governance retreat was good, but took longer than we thought. So hopefully we will be back in open session for anyone who's watching at home in 30 to 40 minutes. That is a total guess, but it's my best guess. So everyone else, if you could go back to that closed session Zoom link in your email that we had earlier. Okay, let's see, who do we have? We have Kabrib, Marianne, Ralph. I think we're just waiting on Tom. Okay. We're here. We're all here. All right, great. So we're back in open session. Give me 1 second to get this agenda up and I'll get us going and out of here. All right, so I'm going to go back to item B from the consent agenda. Personnel recommendations. I move to approve the personnel recommendations, including new hires, transfers, resignations, and releases as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Gail, would you please call? Oh, Gail's not here. Where's Gail?
You know what? Let's have, I don't know. That's a fabulous question, but Lisa, would you mind stepping in, please? It's good. We have somebody on the bench that we can
That's right.
pull in. I'll check.
No problem. Okay. Dr. Maharaj,
Yes.
Mr. Martiri,
Yes.
Mr. Kowski,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
and Ms. Spivey.
Yes, thank you.
There's
All right.
Gail.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry, Gail. So we just voted. We just took a vote on the personnel recommendations. We can do it again if you want. Do you want us to?
No, let's
pinch hitter
move
jumps
on.
in, Gail.
Let's go forward.
We're flexible
Okay,
here.
yeah, all right, great. All right, as long as I don't want to upset Gail. Okay, then we have our next action item, which is approval of an MOA with the Faculty Senate and the IEA NEA. I move to approve the MOA between the Oak Park and River Forest High School District 200 Board of Education and the Faculty Senate, IEA, NEA, as it serves to amend the procedure and process for submitting letters of intent to retire under the 2018-2022 bargaining agreement. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Gail, would you please call the roll for us?
You're muted.
Gail's mad at us now. We're never going to get the vote.
I don't blame her. I mean, I messed up. I'm sorry, Gail.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I have so many tabs open. So Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Martiri,
Yes.
Mr. Kowski,
Yes.
and Dr. Mohanraj,
Yes.
and Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Gail. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. I know it's been relatively long. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe in all the snow.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.